Hey, good evening, everybody. Good evening. How you doing again? Man, I'm so excited. We're back again for another episode. Man, episode 41. So we keep on trucking, keep on keeping this thing going. And you know, I'm just continue to just I'm more than elated and for the privilege of keeping this show going and just thankful for just the opportunity to keep this thing going. I'm so happy that um, that we have this opportunity. I really am. I'm happy that we have this opportunity, and I'm so excited about just a chance to have a conversation. You know, I know this may not be for everybody, but I feel that this is necessary to continue to have this conversation. This is necessary to have this dialogue because guess what? Somebody needs to hear it, and I know and I'm I have a peace within me to know that this has been more than helpful to somebody. So, hey, just keeping this thing going. Let me know where you're tuning in from. Jump in the comments. Let me know where you're tuning in from because we're about to get this thing going. So I'm doing my usual thing. I'm sharing this a few times, sharing this with a few people. I ask that you do the same. Let people know that we're in the building and this thing is going on. So, but with that, man, I'm just happy. I'm excited again about all of the things that God has been doing, not only in my life, but in the lives of so many people that I'm connected with. I have been seeing some things that He has been doing, and I am grateful for the growth. I'm grateful for the growth. Not only, but I'm also grateful for the challenges. So with that being said, man, we're just going to continue to go on. I shared a few. Make sure you share this with somebody. Let them know that we're in the building. But again, man, thank you guys for tuning in so much, man. We're back again for another episode. And before we get going, usually want to do a shout out. And my shout out this week is I want to give a shout out to all of the graduates, the 2021 graduates, all of the high school, the college, junior college. It doesn't matter, elementary school, middle school, all of the graduates. I want to thank you guys for your hard work and just understand, for some, this is just the beginning. For some, you have reached the epitome of your educational goals. I'm very proud, very happy for you and all the things and all of your endeavors. And I want to encourage you to continue to go on, continue to do great things. And not only that, though, just keep striving. The thing about life is this, and don't allow, I want to say this, don't allow somebody to put you in a box. Think about the goals and things that you want to accomplish and just go after them. I promise you, just go after them. Never allow anybody to tell you no. Never allow anybody to tell you no. So again, salute to all the graduates and the other people that I want to shout out today. This is the other people that I want to shout out today. Shout out to all of the teachers, man. The teachers, teachers, and the teachers, the professional assistants, the teachers' assistants, the teachers, the people that work in the lunchrooms, the custodians. The administrators, the secretary, anybody that has worked in the school system, especially over the last 2 years, 18 months, 2 years. I just want to give you guys a shout out and thank you so much for everything, all of the changes, all of the adjustments that you've been having to deal with. And I know it has not been easy, but I thank you for everything that you do. I personally want to put that out there and let you guys know that you are appreciated. You guys are appreciated. And a lot of people don't know what the stuff that you guys have to deal with. I see it on the first day, a very intimate level, and I see what you guys have to deal with, and I commend you for that and all of the sacrifices and all of the heartaches and all of the changes and all of the frustration that you deal with. And you guys are rocking it. So, hey, some of y'all may have a week left. Some finish school this week. Just stay in there. Keep going. And I just wanted to say thank you because a lot of people don't know what you guys deal with your lesson plans, what you guys deal with just with the students, with the changes, with the COVID protocol, with all of the requirements that you guys have to deal with and have to meet, that goes beyond just your 9 to 5. So publicly, I wanted to thank you. So thank you very much. Just want to acknowledge some people. We got some educators tuning in. Miss Nadia Samuels. She said, yes. Hey, listen, I understand. I know the pain. Especially y'all down in Glen Hills. The Glen Hills, those Gators down there. Valencia, thank you again. Thank you guys. I mean, you're welcome. You're more than welcome. So, hey, let's get right into this. Let's get right into this conversation tonight. This conversation tonight is something that it's all about me. Not in a selfish way, but I'm just being transparent. Because it's something that I've been dealing with myself for a while. Especially I say about the last 3 months, last 90 days, I've had to refocus on some things and take inventory on Robert and where Robert is being. And I know this is something that I feel a lot of people deal with, and we just try to manage and get through it. But I wanted to have a conversation so that we can have out in the open about, something that many of us struggle with. And a lot of us struggle with it in silence, but we don't even really recognize it. And that's, the seriousness, the causes, and the dangers of self-neglect, of neglecting ourselves. Listen, and why we even have that conversation, Robert? Why would we even have this conversation? Why would we even talk about self-neglect? Because you know what I'm saying? We eat every day. We do things for ourselves every day. So what do you mean? What do you mean when you talk about self-neglect being serious, or what are some of the causes and the dangers of self-neglect? A lot of times, and I would tell you this, there's a lot of, in this 4-letter word called life, as you're young, especially when you're young, and no knock on it. This is not a knock. This is just a reality. And if you may be going through this right now, and you may not think so, but it's going to become a reality for you. But we deal with a lot of stuff. When we're young, we feel like we are invincible. And we feel like we could just push through and put a little bit more effort and go a little bit more hard on things. As we grow in life and we mature in life, or life just happened, there's certain levels of responsibility that we take on with probably have being parents, having kids, the responsibility of being married, being a spouse, responsibilities on our job, a lot of different things we become. We become a lot of different titles. And we fulfill roles within those titles. And I can even talk about just some of the titles that I carry. I mean, I'm dad, I'm a son, I'm an uncle, I'm an officer in the Army, I'm a minister, I am, a mentor, you just go down the list, all of these different titles, all of these different things that we're responsible for. And we can become overwhelmed by fulfilling all of these obligations. And there's so many demands that be on us that what ends up happening is we end up forgetting about ourselves. And not in a way where we really want to, or not in a way where we are intentional about forgetting about ourselves, but in a way where we lose ourselves by catering or taking care of other people. Which is a dangerous thing. And I say that because I realize, and this what caused me, like when I was talking about 90 days ago, where we have to be cognitive of what levels are we managing ourselves. Like what level are we paying focus to ourselves compared to all of the time, the energy and effort that we give into other people. And it's when we have to manage that, it's really up to us to manage that. The people that you tend to neglect the most is really yourself or those that are closest to you. I can remember one of the hardest things, and I'll say this, I'm naturally a giver. That's who I am. I'm a natural giver. If you know me, I'm an extremely extroverted person. I love people. I have a passion for people. I love interacting with people. I love helping people in any way that I can. I love meeting the needs of people. I love serving people. That is a part of who I am. That's part of my DNA. But with that, it can become dangerous when we don't have balance in our ability to serve others, but yet still prioritize serving ourselves the same way. What do you mean by that, Robert? So you said, Robert, what do you mean by that? I'm not telling you to be selfish. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about to be selfish, but there's a difference between being selfless, providing selfless service, serving others, and neglecting yourself, or serving others to the point where you neglect yourself. And we never want to get to a place to where we are serving or giving so much of ourselves to where we are operating at a deficit. And when we operate at a deficit, we will continue to operate at a deficit to where we'll get to the point to where we are active, but we're not, we don't really operate at an efficient level, or we operate below what our capabilities are, because we're not pouring back into ourselves. We're not pouring back into ourselves. And that's something that's very dangerous, and it's very serious. Very dangerous and very serious. And when we find ourselves in those places, a lot of times what tends to happen is we become so frustrated with everything, all the external things, and we begin to attack other people or project things on other people that's really a result of us neglecting ourselves. Now, what do you mean by that? Robert, what do you mean? What are you saying when you're talking about neglecting yourself? All right, and I want to share some examples. But hey, again, if you're tuning in, watching, let me know where you're watching from in the comment sections. If you got any comments or anything, hey, join the conversation. Jump in the comments. We'll keep this thing going. But I just want to just remind you all, because I really feel like this is something that a lot of us deal with, and we struggle with finding a balance with this. Because I think one of the things, and I was talking to a good friend, but one of the things about balance, right? And we're talking about balance in life. And we talk about it a lot in the military and the professional life, where we start talking about balance. But when we talk about balance, I think that when we're looking at life, all things, I think we need to look at it from a perspective of equity and not equality. And I think that's what we struggle at when we start talking about this balance things. We start talking about this balance thing because we look at it natural. I think we naturally approach, when we're talking about all things balanced, that we're looking at things being on the all things being equal. But I think if we look at it from a perspective of equity instead of equality, then that's when we can really find balance. So what? And I'm gonna come back to it. I'm gonna get to some comments. Valencia said, yes, you act out or withdraw. Yes, and we get like that because we become irritated with ourselves and everything else around us, and we don't even really know. It's hard for us to even identify why we're so irritated, why other people bothering us. And the reality is we are doing a lot of things. And watch this, a lot of the things we become overwhelmed with is because we take on so much other stuff because that's what we feel like we have to do, to the point where we neglect ourselves and we become angry at other people. And that's why I say it's dangerous. And those are some of the causes, but it's dangerous and it's the serious things, because if we continue to operate like that, we erode some of the relationships that are really God gave us to be a blessing to us. We erode away and we do some damage to those relationships because we don't want to deal with the fact that we're angry because of something that we feel like we should do, but really what it is something that we are neglecting ourselves from. Hey, good evening, Miss Paige Banks. Thank you. How you doing? Thank you. I appreciate you. Appreciate your continued support. Means a lot more than what you know. But I want to get back to this when I was talking about equality and equity. And I know I spoke about it, but I just want to I want everybody to really think about it. When we start talking about, oh man, all things being equal and that, like balance, we're talking about balance. I look at it like this, and I'm going to use this. I used this analogy before, but I'm going to use it again. A dime and 10 pennies has the same equal value. But if I put a dime on the scale and I put 10 pennies on the scale, those 10 pennies will greatly outweigh that one dime. But the value of it is equal. And I think that if we look at it like that, that we will find balance, a lot more balance in our lives, to where we allotting certain things. It's not about the quantity, but it's about the quality. It's about the value in which we do things. So the value in which we spend time with our kids, the value in which we spend time with our loved ones, the value in which we prioritize and put effort towards certain things. That's what brings a lot of balance. And that's what a lot of times really will help you with managing you neglecting yourself. You neglecting yourself. You know, I have 4 kids. All 4 of my kids all need different things. I can't go to them with the same thing. Some of them, you know, you can talk to. Some of them, they just want you to sit in the room with them. Some of them, they really don't care. You can text them. You can hit them up. You know what I'm saying? Some of them, they just want you to talk to them. They want you to listen to them. Some of them, you may need to be like, hey, you know, you need to tighten up. But that's just, each one of them need different things. I can't be the same or expect everyone to be the same. Now, back to that balance things, back to you talking about self-neglect. One of the biggest ways we neglect ourselves is we, as people, we begin to prioritize everything before ourselves. Prioritize everything before ourselves. And I know when we start talking about money management and stuff like that, one of the top things that if you hear a lot of people that talk about budgeting and all of this, they said, pay yourself first. Budget in there to pay yourself. And a lot of times people are like, well, I got this bill, this bill, this bill, and I got to pay this, and this. And at the end, we'd have done all the work, but we don't pay ourselves nothing. And now we frustrated because we got all of these bills and all these obligations, but at the end of paying all those obligations, we don't have nothing to enjoy ourselves from all of the hard work that we put into. And what I'm asking us to do is, I'm just talking about prioritizing ourselves on the same level where we prioritize everything else. Prioritize ourselves on the same level where we prioritize everything else. And it's necessary for us to do that because it can become dangerous, man. It becomes dangerous. Like, people don't realize a lot of people have destroyed relationships because they never dealt with the fact that they were the cause of them neglecting themselves. And they blame everybody else. Like Valencia said earlier, she said people act out and they withdraw. And they'll do that and they blaming everybody else. But really, the reality is you the one that are choosing all of these decisions to prioritize over the stuff that is necessary for you. I can't continue to charge your battery when you're at 80%, but I'm at 20%, and keep doing that and expecting me to be okay. Eventually, what's going to happen is, excuse me, eventually I'm going to be the one that run out, and I've never prioritized me taking time for me to recharge. But the other person is already doing so much better than me, but I'm prioritizing everybody else before I prioritize myself. I'm not telling you to be selfish. I'm not saying you be selfish. That's not what I'm saying. That I want people to, and this is one of the hardest things, because you're talking to a person with a servant heart, a person who loves people, who don't mind helping people, who would put other people before myself. But one thing that God has really been dealing with me with, especially here over the last 90 days, especially in 2021, like some things you got to reevaluate yourself. You got to reevaluate you have to reevaluate your reality. And I have to say that you have to reevaluate your reality. And what does that mean? What does that mean? It's not that you're being selfish. It's not that you're being inconsiderate. Some things you got to realize you got to do what's in your best interest. You have to do what's in your best interest. And when you evaluate your reality, sometimes what that means is you realize some people aren't there for you in your best interest. So it's in your best interest not to be there for them. And that's not you being selfish. And I know they can pull away at you because it feels like dang, man, like, man, what are you doing? Like, and you feel like and this is like you start to feel guilty when you're so used to prioritizing other people and not yourself. You start to feel guilty when you start prioritizing yourself. And we got to start working through that. And it's a process to get through that, because I'm going to talk about that because that's something that over the last few days, 90 days, that's something that really I've been working through myself personally. And I want to share about that journey. I really want to share about that journey. Valencia said, pay yourself first, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically, and financially. I couldn't agree more. Pay yourself first, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically, and financially. Listen, we got to stop getting mad at other people. And this is something that we got to stop getting mad at other people for being receptive of what we're willing to give them. And we're angry because we're not getting it back, but we're not prioritizing ourselves. And a lot of times we mad at other people, but it starts with you. And that's why, like, that's one of the dangers of it. That's one of the dangers of it. Listen, man, like, I had to realize that everything that I do for somebody else is my choice. It doesn't matter if it's a spouse, kids, friends, coworker, stranger, or whatever. Everything that I do, I choose to do. That is my decision. Even though sometimes it can be so ingrained in me and so natural for me to do because I am so conditioned to doing it, it is still my decision to do it. And why am I mad at other people when I'm operating at a deficit because I didn't prioritize myself mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically, and financially? And that's something that, like, we have to sit down and really take inventory ourselves. We have to sit down and take inventory. We got Miss Valeda Page Banks. She said, this is so true. I always put others before me, and now it's affecting my health. She said, it's important that I pay attention to me, still helping others, but I'm going to have to do better for me in order to be able to continue to help others. Miss Page Banks, yes, ma'am. Like they said, say that again for the people in the back. Listen, like, this is the thing, like, and I'm not saying this to be funny. I'm saying this out of, like, necessity. Like, it's really a necessity. I've seen people give so much to their job, give so much to their kids, give so much to an organization, give so much to all of these things. And when they needed these people, ain't nobody there for them. Ain't nobody there for them. And they drain themselves dry to the point to where they got health issues now, worrying and doing all these things for other folks, but who looking out for you? And Miss Page Banks hit the nail on the head. Listen, and especially Miss Page Banks, I know you. I've known you. I came to Greensboro in 1986, and I can recall knowing you since I got there in the first grade. And me knowing you as a person, you've always been a very giving person, very loving person. And this is the thing about it. We got to be careful, because what's hard about that is that's part of who we are. That's part of how we made. And you saying, Robert, should I stop being myself? No, I'm not telling you to stop being yourself. What I'm telling you is to start prioritizing yourself the same way you prioritize others. You have to start doing it. It is necessary for you to do that, because if you don't, those areas where you neglect yourself will only catch up with you, and you'll be stuck there with the bill and nobody else with you to help you because you chose to neglect yourself. And I want people to deal with this because this thing is serious, man. I mean, really take inventory. Take inventory and listen. And watch this. A lot of times we neglect ourselves because what we expect is the effort in which we're giving to those things to give back to us the same way. And it's not designed that way. It's not designed that way. That's just like me. I love to cook, love to cook. But if I always cook, I cook these big meals every day and I make sure everybody else is eating and all that, but I never eat myself. And then I pass out and I go to the hospital because I'm malnourished. What good is that? Can I still fulfill my passion to feed people, my passion to make people feel welcome? No, I won't be able to do that because I chose to neglect myself by prioritizing my passion to do things for other people. And I just want us to really understand that. I want us to really deal with that because there's a lot of things that we choosing not to deal with, especially when it comes to self-neglect. And we're talking about what are some of the causes of self-neglect. We got to look at that thing. Some of our causes of self-neglect come from undealt with trauma. Because we expect if I give something to something external, they will turn around and give me what I need on the inside. And we got to start dealing with that stuff. We got to start dealing with that stuff. Your job, your edible is on your job, your good job, and you're doing a good job in all these things, and we can achieve all these accolades on our job or on these organizations and all of that, but that still is not going to give you or fill that void that you have on the inside. And a lot of times, man, especially this is the thing, I had to start prioritizing things that I'm doing for me. And we got to be careful with this, especially with our kids. You working and you working, you getting it in, right? You working, you making sure everything is good for your kids, right? And you're doing all this stuff for your kids. You're doing all this stuff for your future. And I'm not telling you that's not what you're supposed to do. Like, you want to make sure that I'm building financial wealth. I'm putting myself in a position to where my kids will be able to inherit something. The Bible says a wise man leaves an inheritance for his children's children. You're doing all of that work. You're doing all of that work. But in all of that you're doing, what are you doing for yourself on the journey to enjoy yourself? You know, think about it. Think about it. There's a balance with that. There's a balance. I'm not telling you to just be negligent, but there's a balance, and that we have to prioritize how how we do certain things so that we can continue to operate at the level where we know that we should. Ms. Paige Bain brought up earlier about, you know, putting others before herself to the point where it started affecting her health. You know, and we got to start being protective of our peace. And I say that, start being protective of your peace. And sometimes that's having the ability to say no. And it's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing to prioritize yourself. It's not a bad thing to say, you know what, this weekend I'm not doing nothing for nobody. I'm just gonna sit down, sit in my chair. I'm gonna sit in the bed. I'm gonna eat me some chips, drink me some coffee. And I'm gonna binge watch some TV shows. I'm gonna read my book. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. Excuse me, because we've gotten so bad to the point to where we become so overwhelmed. We become so overwhelmed with all of this stuff, that everything that's going on. America, 24/7. Stuff got to be open, got to be going. We got to do this. I got my checklist. I got to do this. I got to do all of this. I feel I got to do this. I feel I got to do this. I feel this. I feel that. And all these things, and we just running. And at the end of the day, what we find ourselves at, we always operating at a deficit. We're not getting good sleep. Now we're starting to have anxiety. We become overwhelmed. Now we're dealing with depression. Now our blood pressure going up. Now we having health issues. Now all of this stuff going on. We have bad attitudes at home, and the home environment is not good. Now impacting our relationship with our kids. Now impacting the relationship that I have with people on my job. And all of these things, all because we're not taking the time to properly prioritize ourselves. You know, one of the greatest examples of this is when you ride, those that rode on the plane. I've ridden on the plane, I'll say probably hundreds of times. But when we prioritize things, when we look at, when you get on the plane and they give you that brief, and you get the brief from the stewardess, the flight attendants, And they talking about the oxygen. They said just in case the oxygen level, the pressure level drop, the oxygen mask will drop down and you place it on yourself. And this is what they tell you. They say place the oxygen on yourself first before you start helping somebody else. And I want to tell you, you got to start prioritizing yourself first before you start pouring into other people. Because you have to maintain your cup. You can't continue to pour out of your cup and you're not maintaining your cup. Because what will happen is with your cup, let's say it's a clay cup. Say your clay cup start getting cracks in it, but you don't take time to maintain it. What happens is everything that's continued to be poured into you will leak out. And you're going to be trying to pour into other people at a capacity in which you think that you have, but it's not the same anymore because you're leaking and you're not taking time to manage or maintain that. And we have to maintain that. We got Yolanda Robinson. She said she was so guilty of this. I was so guilty. And Valencia said balance and boundaries. Yeah, like we got to have that. And there's nothing wrong with it, ain't it? Listen, there's nothing wrong with it. And watch this. If people can't respect the fact that you put up balance, if you boundaries and have to get balance, you put up boundaries. If they can't respect that, respectfully let them go. Respectfully let them go. Because that means that they weren't there for your best interest in the first place. And it's sometimes it's people that have always benefited from you that do you like that. But guess what? It's their loss, not yours. Miss Paige Banks says, she said, every weekend I say I'm not doing anything, just going to relax. One of the children call and ask me to cook or something. Then they invite someone, or my grands want to come over and I never tell them no. But at the end of the day, I'm wore out and it's Monday again. Now I will tell you with that, and I know in this Miss Paige Banks, I know where that one's at. And that's why I talk about, that's why we got to have you got to have these conversations, right? I look at it like this, and I start, and Miss Paige Banks, I'm telling you, this is how I start to look at it. This is not a knock on anybody, but when you start, people, you bring up money, people start acting funny, right? I start to look at it. People will call you and ask you to help them, but I started to evaluate it. How many people could I call if I need something? If they call and ask me, how many people could I call if they needed something? How many people could I call and ask if they actually needed something and they would actually be there at the same level that I would be there? And I started to think about it. I love to cook, Miss Paige Bank. Love to cook. How many people really call me and be like, consider me, be like, I'm gonna cook for you today? I started to think about all of these things. Started to think about all of the things, and this is what I've been going through all the things that I've been going through over the last 90 days. And these are things that I've been like, out of all the stuff I do for other people, who actually doing that for me? And I had to realize that some people are only comfortable, and it's not a bad thing. And I want to say this. Some people are only comfortable with receiving from you because they are used to the consistency of what you're willing to give. But the reason why they are continuing to receive and not offer back is because we never put up boundaries. We never put up boundaries. And though the boundaries are our responsibility, and yet it's still, we may want them and we may feel like we may hurt somebody's feelings, but those are our responsibility to put up those boundaries. And watch this. If they can't respect it, then at the end of the day, who's operating at a deficit? If you want to continue to operate at a deficit, then that's a choice that you're making. And we can't get mad at nobody else because we're still tired because we didn't say no. Yolanda said, family, church, and community makes you feel terrible when you say no. Listen, I got so I got to the point where I'm so comfortable saying no. If I'm not gonna do that, if I don't feel like doing nothing, I'm like, you know what? No, I'm not gonna do it. Now, if I say I'm gonna do something, I do it. But if I say, no, I'm just not gonna do it. I'm not gonna do it. I'm learning to protect my peace as far as with balancing my commitments, because there's a lot of things. Because watch this, I will tell you this, Yolanda, and when you said that, anybody in that church, in that community or family, if they ain't there the same way I know I would be there for them, I wouldn't even worry about it at all. I would not blink an eye. I wouldn't even worry about it at all, because guess what? You got to protect your peace. They know that they can depend on you, but how many people out of them they get upset that you can depend on them? And this is not a tit for tat. This is just a reality. This is a reality that we have to realize and we have to manage. But we are responsible for setting our boundaries. We are responsible for setting our boundaries. And that's what the seriousness behind it and some of the dangers is, because a lot of times we wear ourselves out, even to the point of death, by doing things for others, and we didn't set boundaries for them to respect the effort in which we put in to do for them. And that is something that's I want to talk about. And I'm not telling you that we got to cut people off, but there's certain conversations. And I don't care about, people can say whatever they want to say. It is what it is. But I don't care about people getting upset. I don't care about people getting angry about me speaking truth about me and the things that impact me. The things that impact me. I am not one person to, if I do something for you, I do it from the bottom of my heart. But if I'm continually to do things for you and it seems as if you're not appreciative of that, and I have to hey, I do this for you, right? And you feel like I'm throwing it up in your face, that's your problem. That ain't mine. And the only thing I'm doing is just reminding you of the effort and the time and the energy that I'm putting in towards you. I just respect the same thing to be reciprocated back to me. Because what we pour out to, we got to have a source in which we recharge. And that's on us. That's on us. We look at the even science talk about 24 hours in a day. They talk about sleep for 8 hours, work for 8 hours, rest, work, and 8 hours of your own personal time or whatever, however you want to qualify that. But that's your time. That's what you got to manage. We're responsible for that. But I did want to go back and talk about the boundaries, because it's not a bad thing to set boundaries with people, because those boundaries are necessary, especially when you start talking about you. And listen, this thing is not, I don't want everybody to feel like what I'm talking about is the thing that I'm talking about is something that it's crazy or anything, but it's small decisions. Small decisions. It's not that you still can't be yourself, not that you still can't love and do things for other people. But I started making small decisions about, Robert, for real, I'm asking you guys this. What have you done within the last week deliberately just for yourself? Not talking about what you ate and this, that, and what have you actually done deliberately just for yourself that brought you joy compared to all the things that you do for other people? What have you done? If you feel like sharing it in the comments, please do. But what have you done deliberately for yourself within the last week just for you, to celebrate you? I posted some pictures yesterday. I went to the studio here in Kansas City. Yeah, it's for my album, but that's something that I really like. That's me. That was me. And guess what? I did that. I went online, found the place, booked my time, and I went in, and guess what, man? I had a blast yesterday. I had a blast. Worked on some songs for my upcoming album, which I'm so excited about. And I just enjoyed that. I enjoyed that. Like, seriously enjoyed that. But before, like, I prioritize my kids, prioritize my family, making sure that they're taken care of, making sure all these different things. And like, man, I was like, dang. Like, so guess what? I'm not where I'm at right now. And this is just me speaking for me. Where I'm at right now, I'm not that far away from an outlet mall. So guess what I've been doing? Man, I stopped in, they got a Nike outlet, went up in there. And I've been, you know, I catch some deals now. You heard me? I catch some deals, but I bought me a few pair of shoes here. Like more shoes than I bought, like in these past few months, I done bought more shoes for myself than I done bought for myself in the past few years. And I just start doing those small things. And like, what am I doing for myself? Yolanda said nothing. She said, I never asked myself this before. And that's why I'm asking, you know, that's because guess what? We don't really think about it. We just keep doing and doing and doing. But what are you actually doing to celebrate you? Like, seriously, what are you doing to celebrate you? And it doesn't have to be something big and extravagant. It doesn't. Miss Paige Banks said nothing. Miss Valencia said she took herself out to eat. Yes, that's what I'm talking about. Go ahead and treat yourself. And now they said, okay, then appreciate you. Yeah, yes. Like I'm dead serious. Like I start doing small things, like real small things for myself. Small things. And it doesn't, like, I'm talking about small things. So look, Walmart got that market, it's like marketplace. I think it's a market, it's market something, but it's that lemonade they sell. Like when you walk over there, it's by the over there in the fruit section, they have it like in the little refrigerated place, but they got those lemonades, right? They be having the lemonade, they have like raspberry lemonade, and they have like the sweet tea, right? But I like to get those lemonades because guess what? I like to get them and I like to put them in the freezer to the point to where they almost frozen, but they're not frozen solid, but they frozen good enough to where it make that good slushy. So guess what I've been doing? I go in Walmart, I get me 1 or 2 of those, and guess what I do? I take that and I put it in that freezer, and man, I know like when I get back from class, man, it's about to be on. And those small things, those are small things that I started to do for myself to reward myself because we just keep going and going and going. And I just say, you know what? Even though it's small, I'm deliberate about prioritizing Robert, like prioritizing me. Ms. Paige Banks said, but I'm going to start, even if it's just going getting a pedicure. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. And matter of fact, Miss Paige Banks, for that pedicure, the pedicure you talking about, I'm going to bless you and I'm going to pay for that pedicure for you. So I'm gonna be getting in touch with you so I can give you the money so you can go out there and you can get your nails done and you can go do that thing for yourself. And I'll be happy to do that because guess what? I understand the importance. So the first one going to be on me. Now you got to prioritize and work it out, everything else. But I want to be a blessing to you for that. And I appreciate your continued support. So I got you. My classmate Ruby, what's going on? Ruby said, I need to do. Yeah, it's necessary. It is necessary. This ain't nothing that I'm talking like. This is so much from a mental space. A lot of us, we're so overwhelmed and we're so wore out and we're operating at a deficit because we stop prioritizing ourselves and we get and we allow this false narrative of like we're being selfish. No, I'm not telling anybody to be selfish. You're not being selfish when you're prioritizing you. You're not being selfish when you're prioritizing you. I'm just telling you, it's necessary. You cannot be the best husband. You can't be the best wife. You can't be the best mother, best father, best teacher. You can't be anything that you are if you're not fully operating from a place of where you full. You can't do that. So that's why it is so important. That's why you're so important. Nadia's talking about the slushy style. Listen, that thing, like the kids said, that thing be busting. That thing be hitting. And I like to get it to where it be so good. You drink it down. There's where like the ice left. So like you leave it out and we wake up in the morning, you can shake it up and still have that slush it. Yes, Lord. That thing is it. That thing, you about to make me See, I'm about to run to Walmart after this. You about to make me go. She said, Valencia said, it is the little things. Listen, and I'm not, it is the little things. It is the little things. Listen, my mama said, I can't afford to do for me. Nah, that's a lie. That's a lie. You can afford to do for you, but you're choosing not to do for you. And Mom, I know what you're doing. I know what you're doing there, Mama D. So, but and I'm glad you brought that up. And I want to hit that on it. It is, I will tell you this, not that you can't afford to do it. You can't afford not to do it. You can't afford not to do it. Listen, this 4-letter word called life, man, life, this, and especially, man, this whole narrative about being a Christian and living this walk with God, and as if, you know, everything is just going to be so everything is just going to be so easy, man. This life is something, and we can become overwhelmed with the burdens of life. And we got to find ourselves someplace where, first of all, like I recently, and I'm not saying this to be facetious or not arrogant, but I recently, and like I told you, over this journey over the last 90 days, like I've really been on like realizing who I am, who I belong to, and what God created me to do, in the sense of what He's gifted me to do. And in that, man, I had to be like, sometimes, man, I had to like remind myself, like, hey, Robbie, you pretty dope, bro. Like, hey, you pretty dope. And start looking at some of the things, because we can do a lot and we can have so much, but we always looking at the things that we may not have. And I had to start to learn to appreciate me, to start appreciating the person that I am, regardless of who else would accept me or not, regardless of who liked me or not, regardless of all of that. I had to learn to appreciate me. And like the Bible said, I had to learn to encourage myself, like really encourage myself, that not only that I'm fearfully and wonderfully made, but even though I'm flawed, God still loves me. Yet still, even though I'm flawed and I make mistakes, I'm still created to love people. I'm still created to help people. I still can do things to be a blessing to other people. I can speak life to situations. If I have the power to speak life to situations, I have the power to speak life to myself. And even psychology books and science recognize the power of they call it self-fulfilling prophecy, the power of your words that you speak, that you can manifest things into existence by speaking it. But why can I do that for myself? Why can I encourage myself and get these things so that I'm not neglecting myself? I'm not neglecting myself. Miss Paige Banks, she said, thank you so much. Miss Paige Banks, listen, it is a blessing and an honor to me to show you this love and support that you've been showing me. Nadia said she about to go get one of them them lemonades after she get her nails done. Listen, them things, I'm going to get me one. And my mom said, encourage yourself. Yes, you have to encourage yourself. Yolanda said, woo, amen. Listen, this thing is good. And that's why I said this conversation is something that I feel a lot of us deal with. And I think a lot of us, we fear losing relationships or damaging relationships when we put boundaries, by putting boundaries. And I want to challenge you to let you know that if they can't respect you protecting yourself, they don't respect you anyway. So losing them is not a loss, it's a gain. It's not a loss, it's a gain. Some things, for those that swim, oh yeah, so oh yeah, I'm gonna use this analogy, but I want to talk about this, what Yolanda just said. But those of us that swim, and it's like that, I'm gonna use this too. She said we weren't taught boundaries growing up. That is a very true statement. But I wanted to use this analogy as for those that swim. I know growing up in Uniontown, You go to the swimming pool and they had the deep end. The deep end was like 15 feet. And I can remember going to the deep end and jumping in the deep end, and like it was deep down there, right? I look at it like this: not having boundaries or setting boundaries is as if I'm jumping in the pool with a 100-pound dumbbell, and I'm holding on to that dumbbell all the way at the bottom and refusing to let go. That is like me not having any boundaries. But as I refuse to let go, I'm blaming everybody else for why I'm stuck at the bottom of that pool. And the reason why I'm stuck at the bottom of that pool is because I'm weighted down by the weight that I'm choosing to hold on to. And only thing I have to do to come up is let go. Is let go. And I use that analogy is because we have to set those boundaries. We can't be at the bottom of the pool holding on to things and it's weighing us down and we get mad because we stuck at the bottom. The only thing we have to do is get to the top, is let go, and we will start to rise up to the top. Stop allowing yourself to be bogged down and burdened down because we are not setting boundaries. We're not acknowledging the causes of self-neglect. Listen, and I ain't really I didn't really jump into that one, but I did mention it a little bit. But a lot of times we got to, and this goes back to what I've been talking about a long time, and we're talking about healing and dealing with stuff. A lot of that stuff come from, man, undealt with trauma, man. We got some undealt with stuff that we'll begin to neglect ourselves in a ways where we want to compensate, overcompensate by giving so much to others with the expectation that that void on the inside will be healed, or that void on the inside will be filled externally. And it's not. See, when we're dealing with those type of pains and trauma, the only thing that can feel that is God. And I'm telling you from somebody who spent years trying to have that external thing fill that void. That external thing is not filling that void. I'm telling you, it's not going to do it. It's always going to be temporary. It's always going to be temporary. No matter if it's a bottle, no matter if it's the opposite sex, if it's sexual relations, no matter if it's drugs, no matter if it's money, no matter if it's position, no matter if it's job, no matter if it's street cred, no matter what it is, it will never permanently fill that void. It will always be temporary. Always be temporary. And it will always leave us at more of a deficit than it did before we even start. That's why we have to deal with that, man. And we got to realize what is the cause and start asking, hey, why do I feel, watch this. Why do I feel, we have to start asking ourselves these questions. And I will tell you, over the last 90 days, man, like God has really been doing something for me. And I shared with Valencia about, something that God spoke to me at the beginning of 2021. Said, Robert, this is the year that, or the year to renew, revive, restore, and reveal. Renew, revive, restore, reveal. Renew, revive, restore, reveal in 2020. And I ain't really know where it was going, but I would tell you this thing has been really like, Robert, let's get back down to renew. First of all, renew your relationship with me. Renew your understanding of who I am. Renew your understanding of grace. Renew your understanding of grace. And renew your understanding of what my mercy is, of who I am as a person. Revive the man that I created you to be. And why are you operating at a deficit? Because you are neglecting yourself by giving so much of yourself to others, to where you're unable to operate at the capacity in which I created you to operate in, because you are choosing to neglect yourself and not prioritize yourself, not other people. And I became so focused on feeling as if others was taking advantage of me by not appreciating me And the reality, it was me neglecting myself by not prioritizing myself and prioritizing others before me. And I want y'all to really hear what I just said with that. And this is what God has really been doing with me over these last few weeks, and getting to this point to where, Robert, a lot of your frustrations, a lot of the things that you've been dealing with in your life has really been a result of you neglecting yourself. And watch this. When you neglect yourself, you're really neglecting God. No matter how you try to put it, when you neglect yourself, you're really neglecting God. The enemy will try to come in and make you feel like, oh, well, I'm just being selfish. And no, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm not telling you not take care of your family. I'm not telling you not take care of your kids. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm saying is when you neglect yourself, that means you're neglecting the purpose or the destiny in which you were created to fulfill. And that's why it's so important. That's why it's so important. It's so important that we get to that place and start realizing, okay, so what's causing this? What's causing this? Is it because I didn't feel love from my dad, so that's why I'm doing this? Is it because I didn't have a relationship with my mom, or why my mom wasn't there? It's because of this? Is it because, and start asking these questions, and it will get you to the point where you'll start to realize what's the source, and you'll be able to start dealing with that and start processing that and start managing that. Kim, she said, I've been working on that. It's hard for me to say no to people that need help. Yes. And I'm not telling you to say no, Kim. That's not, and I know exactly where you're coming from. Because like I said earlier, I'm a giver. That is a part of who I am. And I love helping people. Like, me saying I love helping people is an understatement. I would literally give people the clothes off my back. But you got to start prioritizing that. Okay, is it good for me to give to the point to where I can't take care of me because I still have obligations myself? And I realize this too. Everybody that you help ain't gonna appreciate. Look at Jesus healed 10 people that were blind. It was 10. It was 10 people that was blind. Jesus healed them. Only one came back to thank him. So that's why I say you got to start looking at, everybody ain't gonna really appreciate the help that you do. So why would you give to the point to where you're neglecting yourself, even though you may meet their need? And listen, I want people to start just looking at that and start realizing, okay, first of all, we can start on, like we said, small things. So what am I doing for myself? What am I doing for myself? And don't try to manipulate yourself by you doing stuff for other people that you benefit from. You know, like, listen, take yourself out to eat. You ain't got to go out. Like, look, if you want to go get you something, just say, hey, I'm gonna go get me something. Like, it could be small. Like, you'd be like, I'm gonna go home, I'm gonna cook. I got something in the crock pot for my kids. But today, guess what? I want to go get me that old spicy chicken sandwich from Popeye. Tell them put some extra pickles on there. A little bit of sauce on the side. And you eat that. Like, small things about you. Or you just say, you know what? When I get up in the morning, or on Saturday mornings, Miss Paige Banks was talking about earlier. Look, I know I said I ain't gonna do nothing all day, but guess what? These hours are blocked off, and they my hours. And ain't nothing coming in there. These are my hours. And between the hours of 8 o'clock, 12 o'clock on Saturday mornings, you come at 12:01. But from 8 to 12 o'clock, this is my time. This is my me time. And you have to protect that. You have to protect that because it's necessary to protect that. It's necessary to do the small things. It's necessary to do that because you are dependent on it. And I would just tell you, I've really, really have been enjoying myself, enjoying this journey of appreciating me, of really finding me, getting back to me, and loving me, and loving me, because a lot of times we can get lost into our obligations and our titles. We can get lost into our obligation and our titles. Definitely can. I'm laughing at Valencia said, and do that happy dance while you eating your chicken sandwich. Hey, y'all know what you talk about when that happy dance. You eat something, it be so good, you just got to shake, you got to do a little shimmy. Yeah, that happy dance be good, and do that. And Miss Paige Banks, listen, said good block off hours for me. And I tell you, and this is one thing I learned in the military. There's some senior leaders that general officers, and if you make it to that level, like your day is just made up. Like you got all these meetings and all these things you got to go to. But there's times where you just block off, say, boom, this time right here, no office calls, no nothing. Only like true emergencies from this time. And that's where they block off certain time. And you have to block that time out for you. You still can do all the other stuff, but that space is your sacred space. That's your sacred time. And that's how you find that balance. That's how you find that balance. And what I was talking about earlier. I want everybody to understand that this thing is fluid. It's a fluid issue, but you know, it's something that you can overcome. It's just all about reprogramming. Listen, stop feeling guilty for you doing stuff for you, for your well-being, your health. You got to be selfish about your mental health. And this is something that I'm speaking towards with mental health, because that goes into self-neglect. And watch this. It's not only from a mental standpoint, but it affects you physically. It affects you physically. And you can't neglect yourself to where now you start having health issues and you're not here and be able to enjoy the quality of life because you're prioritizing everything else over yourself. So I thank you guys so much. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I had I remember just thinking about, you know, what I was going to talk about for this week. And, you know, it was something that this popped up. I know Yolanda, she just said this, and I want to speak to this, and I just felt led to speak to this. Anxiety. And I want to talk about anxiety and the feeling of being overwhelmed. I dealt with anxiety in 2008, 2007 and 2008. It's the first time in my life that I ever experienced having to deal with anxiety on that level. And my causes of it were, at the time I was going through a divorce. As I was going through a divorce, one of the things that I found myself doing was I felt that I had to do so much, that everything that needed to be done from a physical standpoint to an emotional to a spiritual standpoint, that I personally was responsible for manifesting all of that. And I began to take on a burden that was not wasn't mine to take over. And in my mind, and from a mental standpoint, my mind, I began to be so overwhelmed by everything that I had to do that I felt was my responsibility, to the point where it was impacting me from a physical standpoint. And like you said here, you know, it felt like you said, anxiety, it felt like a heart attack, like you was physically having a heart attack. And I can remember sitting down, taking college classes to take a class and being so overwhelmed about worrying about all of these other, like these worrying about the what ifs, instead of focusing on what I could do. I just began to be so overwhelmed. And I said all that to say, that is where I realized where I wasn't being trusting to God. Like I tried to pull all of that on myself. And that's when I had to be reminded that that's when God was talking about cast my cares on him. In all my ways, acknowledge him, and he shall direct my path. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall not fear evil. Yea, though I walk through, even though I'm still going through, I won't fear. You know, and I had to be reminded about the Bible when it talks about the Philippians 4:7 peace, that said the peace that surpasses all understanding. And I had to get to that place because guess what? I was trying to do everything. And that's why I was overwhelmed. That's why I felt that way. And I can empathize with people because I know what that feels like. I know what it feels like when you say it feels like a heart attack and you have that big knot just right there in the middle of your chest and you want to scream and it's like nobody can hear you. And you want to scream as loud as you can and it's like nothing's coming out. And I would tell you, and listen, I had to learn that, and I want to share this, and I want to share this, and I'm being as honest as possible. I was overwhelmed. I was so overwhelmed. And I'm going to tell y'all from that mental place, and I'm going to go back and just close this out, but I really feel this helping somebody. I was so overwhelmed to the point where I was even blocking a blessing that God was sending on my behalf to help me. During this time, I was a single dad. And mom, I remember like it was yesterday. My mom and my dad called me. And my mom and my dad called me, and this is what they said to me. I was struggling in school. And when I said I was dealing with post-traumatic stress disorder, I was depressed, I was dealing with anxiety, going through a divorce. I was at a bad place mentally and emotionally, spiritually. I was at a bad place financially. I was at a bad place. And my mom and my dad called and was like, hey, Robert, just want to let you know, if you need us to get Robert, my son, for a little bit, we got him. This is what I heard when they told me that. Not the fact that I knew I needed help, but this is what I heard. And this why, man, this thing, and I'm going to talk about this at a later show, but I'm going to tell you what I heard from hurting ears, from wounded ears. I heard, Robert, you're not good enough to be his dad. So we're going to take him from you because you're not good enough to handle it. And I got angry at my parents. And I was respectful, but I got angry at my parents. And I buckled down even more. And I'm going to make it. I'm going to push through. And not to mention my son had separation anxiety. And it was overwhelming to the point to where I almost, and I'm telling you, in my pride and in my hurting ears, I almost got kicked out of ROTC because I almost failed out of school because I couldn't focus and I was trying to do everything and be everything. And it was when I allowed Robert to go with my parents because God had put on their heart that that's what their son needed. And I was blocking a blessing because I was hearing from hurting ears, because I was dealing with anxiety and I was feeling overwhelmed and I was feeling like I had to do everything. But that is why I can say today without a shadow of a doubt that I know God to be a keeper. And when I say I know God to be a keeper, is how he orchestrated everything, how he had the leader that I had with Colonel retired Ken Rowe, who didn't give up on me, who had every rightful opportunity to give up on me. But she didn't. She had every right to kick me out of that program, but she didn't. When I say every right, I'm talking about all the check marks for me to get kicked out. I hit all of them, but she didn't. My parents got Robert. I was able to get to, and when they got Robert, I started going to behavioral health, and I started going to see a psychologist. You talk about what you mean, Robert, ain't you a minister? Then you just pray to God and everything worked out. Listen, I went and got some help. I needed somebody to talk to. Yeah, I still have my church family, It was helpful, but I needed some help. And I went and got some professional help. And I wanted to share that because of what God taught me and all that is, despite me neglecting my relationship with him, despite me neglecting myself, he still was there and he never gave up on me. He always looked out for my best interest. So that's why I believe. I'm just telling people that, I mean, it ain't got nothing to do with all this other stuff. And you want to debate and talk about all of this indoctrination or whatever, bro, that ain't me. Because I have tasted, and like the Bible said, oh, taste and see that the Lord is good. I've tasted it. And because I've had that taste, and because even when I was at my lowest, he never left me. Nah. That thing is something serious to me. And I know I went on from that, but don't allow your current state and how you feel to be, and that's why I've been talking about healing so much. That's why it's so important that we heal, because we hear differently. Hurting ears, wounded ears, and healed ears hear things differently. And I made things worse. And I wouldn't be here today. Come in a week and a half, officially, I'll be a major in the United States Army. I wouldn't be here today because I can remember Deborah, my mama, Deborah Denise, Mama D. Shepherd. She said, Robert, this is part of your purpose. And I wanted to give up, and I was comfortable with giving up. But she said, it's bigger than you. And Lily, I'm trying to breathe a little bit and fight away tears, but when I think about it and I look back on it, I'm grateful. That's why I know God to be a keeper. That's why I can say I understand about God's grace and his mercy. And I'm thankful, God, for all of that, because by me going through that, now I can relate to people, and I can connect with them on levels and encourage them to continue to go on. So with my thing with the anxiety, I would say we got to start to realize, okay, what's for me to carry and what's to put in God's hand. Valencia got a few comments. She said, take care of your mind, body, and spirit so you can continue to serve and love on others. That is so true. And she said, you're right. By not taking care of ourselves, self-neglect, we're blocking our own blessings. And that is the biggest thing. And that's really what we're going to close on tonight, because don't be the blocker of your own blessing because you are neglecting yourself. And self-neglect is not always you not doing for yourself. And I would tell you the balance with that is knowing that when it's you will have a peace in your life when your priorities are in right order. When your priorities are in the right order. So thank you guys again so much for tuning in. I really enjoyed this episode. I challenge you guys this week to continue to call somebody, encourage somebody, let them know that you see them, let them know that you know saying what they're doing, and prioritize something for you. Like, do something for you. If you like to read a book, set some time out to read a book. Set some time out. Block that time out for yourself. Listen, if you like to cook, man, cook you a meal you want. I don't care what them kids asking for. Cook you a meal what you want. Whatever you like to do, find it out. If you just like to go to Walmart, walk around, just go to Walmart, walk around. Like, whatever it is that brings you joy, that's something that you're doing for yourself, do it for yourself this week. And it may not cost no money, you know what I'm saying? Just do it for yourself. Do it for yourself this week. Do it for yourself. Do it. And I promise you, if you remain diligent about that, you will see a change in how you react to you and how you feel about you. So my mom, listen, My mom said she want a burnt bologna sandwich. So, mama, do you want it burnt around the edges? Because you know you're going to have to put a slit in it, the 4 slits, so it can lay down flat and get the burnt ring around the edge. I know you know what I'm talking about. Now, she said with cheese, lettuce, and tomatoes. Now, you can have the lettuce and tomatoes now with me with cheese. And mom, cook you that bologna sandwich. Get you that good bologna. I'm talking about the thick bologna with the red ring around it. Everybody know what I'm talking about. So do what you got to do for yourself. Prioritize yourself this week so that you can do something for yourself. And I promise you, you will feel a lot better. And it doesn't have to be big. Let it be something small. And just be a blessing to somebody else. Don't lose yourself. Don't lose your identity prioritizing others, because you need to maintain who you are to be the blessing that God created you to be. So you guys have a blessed and wonderful evening. Thank you so much for tuning in. Share this with somebody. If you feel, like it will be a blessing to them. And I'm so appreciative of the continued support and looking forward to seeing you guys next week. You guys have a blessed and wonderful day.